He was a single-dad millionaire who trusted no one near his son. She was the maid who packed his child's lunch and quietly kept his cold house running. So when he offered her $50,000 to pretend to be his girlfriend for 1 month, it felt like a simple deal. What neither of them expected was that the lie meant to protect his life would slowly break his heart and make her the one thing he was most afraid to lose. Before we jump into today's story, take a moment to share where you're watching from. We love seeing how far our stories reach and connect with amazing viewers like you. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe so you never miss the new story. Now, get comfortable and let's dive into the story. A $50,000 offer and the real cost behind it. The ocean-facing mansion was quiet in the way only expensive houses ever were. Not peaceful, just controlled. Every surface gleamed, every object sat exactly where it belonged, as if disorder itself had been banned at the gate. Ryan Reynolds liked it that way. Order meant safety. Order meant nothing slipped through his fingers again. Scarlett Johansson moved through the kitchen without sound, wiping the counter, packing a lunchbox, checking the clock. She had learned how to exist here without leaving a trace. She did her work efficiently, calmly, and without expectation. People like her were meant to keep places running, not to be noticed inside them. The only exception was Levi. "Scarlett!" Levi's small voice echoed down the hall before his feet followed. He wrapped his arms around her waist, nearly knocking the breath from her as he held up a piece of paper. "Look, I finished it." She crouched instantly, eyes softening as she took the drawing. A crooked house, 3 stick figures, one taller, one smaller, one with long hair drawn in bright yellow lines. "Our house," Levi said proudly, "with all of us." Scarlett smiled before she could stop herself. "It's beautiful," she said, meaning more than the picture. She didn't look up, but she knew Ryan was standing near the doorway, watching. He always did. Thankful, cautious, distant. Ryan cleared his throat. "Scarlett, can you come to the kitchen for a moment?" The tone was neutral, but something shifted. She felt it as she stood, brushing off her knees. The air changed the way it did before a storm. Ryan waited until Levi had wandered back toward the living room. Then he spoke, directly, without preamble. "I need you to pretend to be my girlfriend." The words landed cleanly, like a document placed on a desk. Scarlett blinked. "I'm sorry?" "For 1 month," he continued. "Public events only. I'll pay you $50,000. Up front." The number barely registered. What she felt instead was the sharp sting beneath it. She straightened, her voice steady. "I'm your housekeeper. I'm not something you rent for appearances." Ryan didn't apologize. He didn't raise his voice. "I wouldn't ask if I had another option." He explained quickly, clinically. A charity gala. Media attention. Donors who preferred stability. Lawyers who had started whispering about guardianship concerns because a widowed man with no visible support made people nervous. One wrong headline could invite scrutiny he couldn't afford, not when Levi was involved. "I don't need someone perfect," Ryan said, finally meeting her eyes. "I need someone my son trusts." That was what cracked her resolve. Scarlett thought of Levi's hand in hers, of his drawings, of the way he fell asleep when she read to him, and then, uninvited, another image surfaced: a hospital hallway, a doctor's voice, the word urgent. Ryan placed an envelope on the counter. Thick, heavy, final. He didn't push it toward her. That night, Scarlett sat alone in her apartment, bills spread across the table, medical records stacked neatly beside them. Justin's name circled in red ink, surgery dates, missed calls. Levi's drawing lay next to it all. She stared at the numbers, at the picture, at the quiet room around her, and felt the question settle deep in her chest. If she said yes, what would it cost her to stay, and what would it cost her to leave? 1 month on paper and the first line that trembled. Scarlett didn't sleep. The night stretched thin and restless, her thoughts looping between $50,000 and a child's voice asking if she would stay. She tried to tell herself it was simple, a role, a boundary, a month, but every time she closed her eyes, she saw Levi's drawing and felt the lie forming before it was ever spoken. She arrived at the mansion earlier than usual the next morning. Everything looked the same, polished, quiet, controlled, only she felt different inside it. Ryan was already in the kitchen, coffee untouched. He looked up when she entered. "I'll do it," she said before he could speak, but not without rules. Her voice didn't shake. She didn't soften the edges. I'll appear in public with you. I won't cross physical boundaries. I won't be used to manage family conflicts or manipulate press narratives. And Levi doesn't get hurt, not even emotionally. Ryan listened, really listened. For the first time, he wasn't seeing a staff member. He was seeing a woman who knew her worth and was willing to walk away. My conditions are simple, he replied. Levi comes first. The arrangement ends cleanly after 1 month, and nothing leaks. We could better. They reviewed the contract like two professionals closing a deal neither fully understood yet. When they signed, the room felt colder, not warmer. Before Scarlett left the kitchen, Levi appeared, tugging at her sleeve. She knelt instinctively, adjusting his jacket collar, smoothing his hair. Ryan watched. Something unfamiliar tightened in his chest. Control slipping. Not dangerously, just enough to notice. I'll take you shopping this afternoon, he said. Nothing flashy, just enough to stand beside me. Scarlett smiled faintly. I'm playing a role, she replied. I'm not becoming someone else. They shook hands. It looked like a contract. It felt like a beginning neither of them was ready for. Stepping into the light and the first time he saw her as more. That afternoon moved fast, as if the decision they had signed into existence was already pulling them forward. Scarlett followed Ryan into a quiet boutique tucked away from the main streets, the kind of place that didn't advertise because it didn't need to. The stylist greeted Ryan by name, then turned to Scarlett with a polite smile that carried just a hint of curiosity. No one tried to turn her into someone else. There was no dramatic transformation, no glittering excess. The dress Scarlett chose was simple, soft in color, modest in cut. It fit her the way honesty did, without effort, without disguise. When she stood in front of the mirror, she barely recognized the woman looking back, not because she was unfamiliar, but because she looked like a version of herself that had been quietly waiting. I don't want to overdo it, Scarlett said, smoothing the fabric. This is already a lot. Ryan watched from his seat, arms crossed, saying nothing. He didn't compliment her. He didn't need to. His gaze lingered for a second longer than necessary, as if something in his carefully ordered world had shifted just enough to be noticed. Scarlett glanced at him through the mirror, half smiling. I look okay? You do, he replied. Just don't try to be anyone else. The words sounded like direction for a role, but they landed like protection. That evening, the car pulled up to the entrance of the charity gala, lights flaring as soon as the door opened. Cameras flashed, voices rose. Scarlett's heart stumbled, but she didn't stop. Ryan stepped out first, then turned, offering his hand exactly as planned. She hesitated for half a breath before taking it. Inside, everything gleamed glass, gold, laughter that never quite reached the eyes. People smiled too quickly, asked questions that felt friendly, but weren't. Scarlett felt the weight of being assessed, measured, paired with Ryan like an accessory whose value needed confirming. A group of older donors approached, their expressions polite but sharp. They asked how she and Ryan met, what she did before, where she saw herself. Scarlett answered calmly. She spoke about family, about stability, about believing that kindness mattered more than wealth when raising a child. The air shifted. Ryan noticed it immediately. She wasn't reciting lines, she was being herself, and it worked. Later, as a photographer angled for a harsher shot of Ryan, Scarlett stepped slightly closer, blocking the lens without even realizing she'd done it. Ryan caught the movement out of the corner of his eye and felt something unfamiliar tighten in his chest. She was protecting him without being asked. When Ryan was called on stage to announce a major donation, he scanned the room before stepping forward. His eyes found Scarlett standing alone, composed but clearly out of place. The crowd blurred. She didn't. After the event, as they walked outside into the quiet night, Ryan spoke softly. You did well. Scarlett smiled faintly. It's the contract. He stopped walking and looked at her. No, it's you. She didn't answer, but the words followed her all the way home. A child's question, and the first crack in the deal. The ride back was silent. Scarlett watched the city lights slide past the window, reminding herself again and again that this was temporary. 1 month. One role. When they reached the house, Levi was still awake. He ran to Scarlett before she could even take off her shoes, clinging to her as if afraid she might disappear. Did it go good? He asked. She knelt and smiled. It did. That night, she told him a short story about a brave traveler who kept going, even when the road felt strange. Ryan stood in the hallway listening, unsure how to step into a moment that felt both intimate and fragile. The next evening, Ryan arranged a small, controlled appearance for Levi among trusted donors. No cameras, no press, just enough to present an image of family without risking exposure. Levi tugged Scarlett aside and handed her a new drawing. 3 figures stood beneath a glowing house. "Are you staying?" he asked, looking straight into her eyes. "Will you be my mom?" The question cut deeper than any contract clause ever could. Scarlett's breath caught. She searched for careful words, but found none. All she could see was a child placing his entire heart in her hands. Ryan watched from a distance, his jaw tightening not with anger, but with fear. When he called Levi back, his voice was calm, but his hands trembled. Later, Scarlett stood alone, fighting tears. Ryan approached but didn't touch her. "This can't just be a role for him," she said quietly. "I know," Ryan replied, "but I can't let anyone take him from me because they think we're broken." He admitted what he had never said aloud, that since Julia's death, he believed control was the only way to survive. Letting go meant losing again. Scarlett nodded, understanding more than she wanted to. "I can pretend for the world," she said, "but Levi deserves honesty." Ryan agreed, though his eyes betrayed the truth. He wasn't sure he wanted this to stay pretend. That night, Scarlett tucked Levi's drawing into a drawer instead of throwing it away. Ryan saw her do it and said nothing. Later, standing alone in the hallway long after the lights were off, he wondered for the first time if the lie they'd created was becoming the most real thing in his life. The past walks in and rumors grow teeth. The call came just after noon. Ryan's attorney didn't waste time with pleasantries. The charity auction scheduled for that evening mattered more than the gala before it. Several major donors were expected to finalize long-term commitments. Any hint of instability, any whisper of scandal, would be enough to make them hesitate. And hesitation, in this world, was another word for withdrawal. Scarlett listened from the kitchen doorway as Ryan ended the call. She could tell by the way his shoulders stiffened that tonight would not be forgiving. When she prepared for the event, her fear had changed. It wasn't about not belonging anymore. It was about Levi. About what would happen if this world of money and scrutiny brushed too close to him. She reminded herself to stay inside the role, to be invisible where it mattered, steady where it didn't. The auction was held in a restored museum, glass ceilings arching over marble floors. The crowd was smaller than the gala, but heavier. These were people whose names carried weight without needing to be spoken loudly. There were fewer cameras, but sharper eyes. Scarlett walked beside Ryan, feeling the difference immediately. He spoke less. His gaze moved constantly, scanning angles, faces, reflections. Not jealousy. Calculation. Then she heard her name. Scarlett. She turned, surprised, and saw Brad Pitt standing a few steps away, familiar and impossibly out of place in this polished room. He smiled like someone who remembered her before life narrowed. They talked easily, quietly. Brad asked about Justin, about the years Scarlett disappeared from the circles they once shared. For the first time that evening, Scarlett laughed without checking herself. It felt like stepping into a version of her life she had almost forgotten. "You always wanted to teach," Brad said softly. "Art, kids who needed it. You believed kindness was a skill." The words hit her harder than she expected. For a moment, she wasn't a maid pretending to belong. She was a woman who had once imagined a future. Ryan watched from a distance. He didn't see betrayal. He saw risk. A photographer hovered nearby, waiting. Brad's hand brushed Scarlett's arm as he spoke. An embrace lingered a second too long. That was all it took. Ryan stepped in smoothly, cool and distant, ending the conversation with polite efficiency. Scarlett felt the sudden loss like a door closing on a room she hadn't realized she needed. Later, near the bar, Ryan leaned in. His voice was low, precise. "Remember, we're acting. Don't give them something to write about." The words cut deeper than he intended. Scarlett tried to explain. Brad was just a friend. Ryan nodded, but didn't really hear her. He spoke of donors, of Levi, of responsibility, control disguised as concern. "I'm not your accessory," Scarlett said quietly. Ryan's reply came without thought. "You're being paid to play the role." The sentence echoed long after it left his mouth. Scarlett stood frozen, the auction lights glittering around her, feeling something inside go dark. The kitchen at midnight where tears finally fell. The house felt colder when they returned. Ryan said nothing, Scarlett said nothing. The silence settled between them, heavy and unspoken. She moved through her routines automatically, preparing Levi's things, straightening the counters while the words replayed in her mind over and over. "You're being paid," Levi noticed. He always did. "Why aren't you smiling?" he asked. "Why is Dad mad?" Scarlett knelt, smoothing his hair. "We're just tired," she said gently. Later, she called the hospital. Justin's surgery date hovered just out of reach, dependent on funds that now felt poisoned. She needed the money. She hated what it made her feel. When the house finally quieted, Scarlett went to the kitchen. The light was soft, yellow, forgiving. She stared at Levi's cup, the folded napkin, the drawing of 3 figures taped crookedly to the fridge. And then, she broke. She cried silently, the way people do when they've learned not to expect comfort. Ryan appeared without sound. He stood at the doorway, unsure if he was allowed inside this moment. After a beat, he stepped forward and held out a handkerchief. Plain, clean, his initials stitched into the corner. "I was wrong," he said quietly. "Not because I hurt you, because I forgot who you are." Scarlett looked up, eyes wet but steady. "I can handle being overlooked. I can't handle being reduced." Ryan swallowed. He admitted what he hadn't named, that seeing her with Brad had unsettled him, that fear for Levi had turned into control, that he didn't know when concern had crossed into something else. "I won't use you as a shield," he said. "If there's fallout, I'll handle it." Scarlett didn't soften immediately. "I'll play the role," she replied. "But I won't surrender my feelings, and Levi can't be collateral." Ryan nodded. He didn't touch her. He only stood closer than before, his presence quieter, less armored. Before leaving the kitchen, he spoke once more. "Thank you for being here with Levi." And afraid. Scarlett didn't answer. But long after he left, she held the handkerchief in her palm, as if warmth could still pass through cloth. The most dangerous kind of peace because it makes you want to stay. Morning arrived quietly, without tension. Scarlett woke before the house stirred and moved through the kitchen on instinct, the way she always had, but something felt different. The sharp edges were gone. The air carried the soft clatter of a pan, the smell of toasted bread, the sound of water heating. It felt, for the first time, like a place meant to be lived in. Levi patted in, rubbing his eyes, and smiled when he saw her. "You're early." "So are you," Scarlett said, handing him a glass of juice. They ate together at the counter. No rush, no instructions shouted from another room. When Ryan passed through, he paused, surprised by the sight. He didn't interrupt. He simply poured himself coffee and sat down across from them, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Later that morning, Scarlett cleared a corner of the living room and taped paper to a board at Levi's height. She set out crayons and markers, stepping back to let him choose. She didn't guide his hand or correct his lines. She gave him space. Levi talked while he drew, about his mom's perfume, about how she used to laugh when it rained. The memories came in fragments, child-shaped and gentle. Scarlett listened without fixing them, without trying to replace anything that had been lost. Ryan heard it all from the hallway. He stayed there, unseen, realizing that his son was remembering without breaking. For the first time, the fear loosened. That evening, Ryan came home early. He didn't announce it. He simply sat at the table and asked Levi what he'd drawn. The question was clumsy. Levi answered anyway, proud. Scarlett watched, neither praising nor interfering. She let Ryan find his way in. At bedtime, she read Levi a story, her voice steady and warm. Ryan stood in the doorway, not hiding this time. He let the sound reach him. When Scarlett received the call from the hospital about Justin's surgery, hope flared, followed by unease. The money existed now, but it felt heavier than before. Ryan noticed her tension but didn't press. That night, Ryan tucked Levi in himself. His storytelling was awkward, but Levi laughed. The sound filled the house like something returning. As Scarlett cleaned up the art corner, she found a new drawing, 3 figures at a table, a small heart between them. She held it longer than she meant to. Elsewhere, Ryan stared at the date on his phone, the end of the contract. He turned the screen off before it could finish loading. The storm outside, and the one inside, a father's chest. The sky darkened early. Wind pressed against the windows, and Ryan's phone chimed with a weather alert. He glanced at it, frowned, then gathered his things. "I'll be late," he told Scarlett. "The driver will pick Levi up on time." Scarlett nodded, but unease followed her all day. She packed an extra jacket for Levi, an umbrella, old habits from years of watching the sky. By afternoon, the call came. School was closing early. Roads were flooding. The driver wasn't answering. Scarlett tried Ryan. The call rang once, then went silent. She had minutes to decide. She spoke to the school security, studied the safest route, borrowed a larger raincoat. She wrapped Levi close, talking the entire walk so he wouldn't feel the storm. "Are you okay?" Levi asked. "I'm okay," she said. "I'm here." Ryan got the message too late. Panic took him whole. He drove through the rain, heart pounding, memory dragging him back to another storm, another loss. The door burst open as Scarlett stepped inside, soaked, Levi trembling but safe in her arms. Ryan rushed forward, relief crashing into anger. "What were you thinking?" he shouted. "Why didn't you wait?" "I called," Scarlett snapped back. "I couldn't leave him." "Levi isn't a line on your calendar," she added. "He's a child." The truth stopped him cold. Ryan draped his jacket around her shoulders, hands shaking. Levi was taken upstairs, changed, settled. The house quieted, rain battering the glass. Ryan brushed a wet strand of hair from Scarlett's cheek. She looked up, tired, open. The space between them vanished. He leaned in, then stopped. "Go change," he said softly. "You'll catch cold." Scarlett turned away, his jacket heavy on her shoulders. Ryan stood there long after she left, staring at the empty space where she'd been, realizing the lie had already become something far more dangerous, something real. The photograph in the attic, and the secret that shattered everything. The morning after the storm arrived without drama. The air was damp, heavy with the scent of rain that hadn't quite left the walls. Scarlett moved through the house carefully, as if one wrong step might crack something already fragile. Ryan did the same. Neither of them spoke about the night before. Neither of them looked too closely at the space where they had almost crossed a line neither was ready to name. Ryan wasn't angry anymore. That unsettled him more than rage ever could. Something inside him had shifted, and the question he couldn't silence kept returning. If he needed her this much, what did the contract even mean? When the maintenance crew arrived to inspect storm damage, Ryan went up to the attic to retrieve insurance documents and spare equipment. He hadn't been up there in years. The air smelled of dust and old paper. Boxes were stacked neatly, each labeled in Julia's handwriting. He opened one without thinking. A scarf, a book, an album bound in worn leather. He flipped it open. Julia smiled up at him from the page, young and bright, her arm around another woman. Lighter hair, a familiar expression. Even faded by time, there was no mistaking her. Scarlett. The shock wasn't that they'd known each other. It was the realization that she had stood in his home, in his life, without ever saying a word. Ryan didn't wait. He carried the album downstairs and placed it on the kitchen table. Scarlett looked up, saw the photograph, and went pale. Not with guilt. With grief. "You knew Julia?" Ryan asked. Scarlett nodded slowly. "We went to the same school. We weren't close. But we mattered to each other." "Were you there?" he pressed. "The day she died." The silence answered for her. "I was nearby," she said quietly. "I ran to the scene. I called for help. I stayed with her until they came." Ryan staggered under the weight of it. His mind twisted the truth into something darker, something safer than hope. "So this was guilt," he said. "You walked into my house to make it right." "No," Scarlett replied, voice shaking but firm. "I came because I needed work, because my brother needed surgery, because Levi trusted me." "You think I should thank you," Ryan snapped, "for watching my wife die?" Scarlett swallowed. "I never wanted to replace her. I just wanted to be treated like a human being." The words broke something open, and Ryan reacted the only way he knew how. By pushing her away. "This was all an act," he said coldly, "and you played it well." Scarlett looked at him, then at the house, then at the life she had almost believed in. She waited until Levi was asleep before she packed. She left a note, a simple apology, and walked out into the rain without an umbrella. Ryan didn't stop her. The next morning, Levi searched the house. Scarlett was gone. He didn't cry. He drew. A picture appeared on the fridge later that day. Just Levi and Scarlett, holding hands. Ryan stared at it and realized, too late, what he had taken from his son. The letter left behind, and an apology in the rain. The house returned to silence. Not the clean silence Ryan preferred, but the hollow kind that echoed. There was no tea in the kitchen, no crayons on the floor, no laughter drifting down the hall. Levi spent his days drawing. Scarlet filled every page. Ryan told himself he had done the right thing, that secrets mattered, that trust mattered. But watching his son grieve quietly shattered that lie. He packed away Julia's things carefully, not to erase her, but to face her memory honestly. That's when he found the letter, hidden behind a photo frame. My love, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone. And if Scarlet is in your life again, please don't push her away for my sake. She once helped me when I needed it most. Let her help you, too. Don't let my memory keep you alone. Ryan cried for the first time in years. Later, Levi handed him a drawing, 2 figures, Scarlet and Levi. Beneath it, written in crooked letters, "Bring her home." Ryan acted immediately. He drove through wet streets to Scarlet's apartment. He knocked. When she opened the door, tired but proud, he didn't hesitate. "I was wrong," he said. "I was afraid, and I hurt you because of it." He knelt. "Not for drama, for humility. You're not a replacement. You're the reason we started living again." Scarlet didn't forgive him instantly. She told him what she needed: trust, respect, and honesty for Levi. Levi stepped forward. "I miss you," he said. That was enough. 6 months later, the house was warm again. Scarlet taught art classes funded quietly by the foundation. Ryan worked less, loved more. On a Tuesday morning, Levi spilled flour across the counter. Scarlet laughed. Ryan grabbed a towel, and just like that, the house learned how to live again. Not every wound heals with time alone. Some heal when we finally stop running from what hurts and allow ourselves to be seen, even when it feels risky. Strength isn't always about enduring in silence. It's about choosing to believe that something gentler can still exist after everything has fallen apart. If this story connected with you, take a moment to share what you felt while listening. Maybe you're hearing it during a quiet evening, a long drive, or a moment when the world slows down just enough to let emotions surface. And if you'd like to continue listening to stories about resilience, healing, and finding warmth again, you're always welcome to stay and follow for more.